The 2-hour conversation, Elon Musk doubled down on his endorsement of Donald Trump, and he also called on moderate voters to back the Republicans' campaign. But why the change of heart? It's not so long ago that the two men, didn't like each other very much, is fair to say. Let's speak now to Erol Morkoc, who is Vice Chair of External Relations for the UK branch of Republicans Overseas, and he joins us live from California. Good morning, Erol.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. And you listened to this 2-hour conversation. What did you make of it?
Well, I think it was great to hear a long-form discussion or conversation between one of the candidates and, one of the most polarizing, exciting individuals in tech, Elon Musk. Certainly brought out a lot of old Trump lines. He was, on form, definitely talking freely without the encumbrances of traditional media forms. I think it was a great time to see the president on stage. It was good for him to lay out some of his policies, things like shutting down the DOE and replacing it with states' rights. These kind of
the DOE is the Department of Education, as we were saying. So he wants to give the power away from the federal level to the individual states.
Absolutely.
Why is that important then?
Oh, that's very important to me, having gone through all public school systems in the United States. You realize that as a public school student, you're not the person who's actually there being helped. It's a jobs program for administrators. And if you look at just in academia, the K-12 system has also had this situation where you have like 80% more administrators involved, but you don't have more teachers. So the money isn't being allocated properly because we're in the bottom of all the rankings of math and science scores. It's not an exceptionally successful group. And teaching is something that's very important. My fiance is a teacher, and I think it's one of the most critical things to have in the local state hands. And so that's something that Trump supporters, myself included, are very excited about, because you can call it the Department of Education all you want. It ends up doing a disservice to our students. And that's why we're looking for that to be abolished.
As I've already said, it was a conversation, not an interview. In Elon Musk, he's got someone who is on side, even offered to take a job in his administration if Donald Trump is re-elected.
Yeah, it was definitely, a great conversation. And I think that's one of the things to highlight. Was Kamala Harris able to go and sit down for 2 hours with somebody, whether they be friendly or foe? Because Donald Trump often sits down with hostile opposition. So for him to get a quote-unquote friendly interview, it's quite nice for us and we enjoy it. But it wasn't as much of an interview as it was showing that he has the capacity to sit there for 2 hours, lay out his strategies, laugh, talk normally without a teleprompter, off script, and be able to enunciate his points. And where is Vice President Harris? Where is the contemporary example of the opposition who have not had any press conferences, don't sit down with anybody, and if they do, it's very pre-prescribed remarks? And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways here is Donald Trump's willing to sit down and have that long-form discussion, and Ms. Harris is not.
With Biden in the race, Donald Trump, according to the opinion polls, was ahead. He had a bit of an advantage. They've narrowed massively. It's pretty much neck and neck now that Kamala Harris is the Democratic nominee. This is going to go to the wire. And does this kind of conversation change things? Does it shift the dial, or does it just reinforce those who are already on side?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think in this case, perhaps I could be ambitious and say it does shift the dial a little bit on those moderate voters, on the fact that there are people who perhaps look at Elon Musk or look to him as somebody who's a moderate tech person who's now been cast aside as some right-wing individual. Perhaps that brings over some moderates, but for the most part, you're right. It's a 50-50 race. It's going to go down to the wire. The gap is narrowed to basically party lines. And I think that while it might have some difference, most people's minds are already made up. So we're really battling for those few lost minds and souls in very, very few states, such as Pennsylvania. I think a minor benefit, I think it shows competence and it'll show the American people that one candidate is still out there. But I don't think it's going to be the end-all, be-all on the election day.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to come down to the wire. And those handful of states are going to decide who ends up in the White House. It's remarkable, isn't it? In a contest across all 50 states, it just comes down to about 4, 5 or 6 of them in the end. It is going to be fascinating, and there's a long way to go. Thank you very much for joining us. That's Erol Morkoc, who is from the UK branch of Republicans overseas, although he's back in California at the moment. The time is 8:15.
And